If you're a public speaker, then you likely spend the majority of your time preparing your speech, talk, or presentation, which you should. But there's another part of the equation that should get a bit of your attention as well. That's the Q&A that happens afterward. Not preparing properly can mean you lose an easy opportunity to connect with your audience. In this video, I'll share my best do's and don'ts for building rapport with your audience, increasing engagement, and establishing yourself as an authority through the Q&A. I'm Cheryl Tan, creator of the MAP, the Media Authority Plan. I'm a former TV news anchor turned entrepreneur, and I help corporate professionals show up with confidence on camera in order to generate more business and career opportunities. One way to become a better speaker on stage is to get more comfortable on camera. I have a video ready checklist that you can use to create better videos every single time. Stick around to the end and I'll share the link to access that for free. The idea for this video came from a question I received from someone in my audience. This person says, I tend to freeze up when questions are asked. I'm currently going through this situation now as a speaker. When questions are asked after my training presentation, internally, I tend to overthink as if the person asking the question is testing my knowledge in a negative manner. How do I overcome this fear? First, thank you for the question. If you're going to be speaking publicly, this is such an important thing to think about ahead of time. By making the effort now, you'll be so much more prepared the next time you take the stage. I like to look at the Q&A a bit like a media interview. You can be asked any question under the sun, but typically there's a focus tied to what your presentation is about. You can advance the goals you had for your presentation, and you can show off your personality. You can have a little bit of fun here. What else should you focus on? Remember, the presentation isn't about you. The Q&A isn't about you either. It's all about your audience and what they need to hear. Rather than thinking that people asking a question are trying to trip you up, imagine they are truly curious about your answer. That leads to the next do. Prepare thoroughly. Take some time to anticipate potential questions and prepare answers in advance. Make a list of likely questions you could be asked and write those responses down. My favorite thing to recommend is to record a video of you answering those questions and then watch back what you've created. Take your answers and prepare some talking points. I like to have my clients prepare talking points so they have somewhere to go if all else fails. If they can't remember anything on the spot, they can go to their notes and their talking points. You can list the problem you solve, the impact you hope to make, a great story about why you're doing what you do, a case study from a great client. Use what's called a bridging technique. You may sometimes get questions you don't know the answer to, or maybe you don't want to answer. The bridging technique means you acknowledge that you heard the question and that you are shifting the conversation to something else. When you acknowledge the question, you could say something like, thank you so much for the question, but this isn't the right time for that. Or, I hear you, it reminds me of a time when, or I understand you want to talk about that. This will be more helpful for the people here today. Lots of ways to redirect the question. Having talking points, other things you can talk about will help you in this situation. Practice the pause. It's okay to take a moment to think. When someone asks you a question, take a deep breath. Allow yourself a moment to think about an appropriate answer and don't feel rushed to answer. Your audience probably won't notice the time you're taking. You can ask questions as well. You can give yourself a break by getting some insights from your audience. Q&As are typically right at the end of a talk, right before a break or lunch, and people may be getting antsy. You can use this time to bring them back to the topic, get feedback, and test some ideas. Now for the things to avoid. Don't leave questions unanswered and don't ignore them. If you don't know the answer, say so. If you want to redirect the question, use the bridging technique to acknowledge that you heard and understood the question and move on to something else. Don't be afraid to show your personality. By the time you get to the Q&A, you've likely done the bulk of the heavy lifting, so enjoy yourself. Many of my clients love speaking live because it gives them the chance to interact with their audience. Enjoy this opportunity to have a conversation with them. And somewhere in the Q&A, from a question you get asked, you may get ideas for another talk. I promised you I would tell you how to get my video ready checklist, which will give you tips and tricks on how to create a great video every single time. Just go to cheryltanmedia.com/video tips to get it. I'll also put the link in the description below. The success of a presentation depends on the content, of course, but also on the delivery. If you want to learn how to present better on camera and on stage, watch this next.